I know you're still weighing whether to return to Lumen. But the mark I've come to know is happy.
Hello, is anyone there? Is the board on? It's Marquez from Macro.
Adam, I wanted to start with you. One constant from Severance season 1 and 2 is you running. You stay running. So did you train to do 100 takes of running up and down all those hallways?
I trained by watching Tom Cruise.
There you go.
And what he does. Ben and I talked about Tom Cruise quite a bit when shooting that stuff, and because he is the very best at running in clothing that should not be run in. And I was in a suit the whole time. So
that's like Eugene Levy in Waiting for Guffman when he says, "Yes, were you the class clown?" He's like, "No, but I studied the class clown."
I studied the class clown in the back of the classroom.
Yeah.
So, we did do a lot of running. I would always know, we shot that sequence over a period of like the first 5 or 6 months of production. And I always knew another portion of the running scene was coming when I was asked what color of Gatorade I wanted in 3 days. It was like, oh no, there's more. And, but it was really fun and really crazy. I can't wait for there to be like a behind the scenes featurette on that sequence because it was really something piecing it together.
Yeah, Adam had to run a lot this season.
Yeah.
This is for both of you. The strength of this show is its incredible ensemble cast. Think all the way back to the beginning. What was the process of creating the characters' innie and outie personas?
Well, I do think even going back further is just the casting of it and, finding these amazing actors. And I felt knowing that we were going to have these incredibly committed actors who were going to take this so seriously. Each person, I think, has their own personal sort of way of approaching it. And I don't really even get into it that much. We have discussions about it as a director. We'll discuss it and talk about what the differences are, what bleeds through and what doesn't bleed through. But, Adam, I know from the beginning was just so committed to finding those differences in the character.
Yeah, I think, we really approached it like it was two parts of the same person rather than two vastly different characters, and they are different. One of them has 40 odd years of life experience with joy and pain and sorrow and all of the things that go with a full life. And the other one, for all intents and purposes, is like 2.5 years old. So that would clearly result in differences, but it was important that it feel like the same guy.
Yeah, and that's been a fun thing to, question as we go through making the show every day, really, for every character that's severed. Every interaction, every scene, there's always some sort of question of, what from their other, self, their other severed self is perhaps resonating, even if it's in a way that we don't see. And I think that's a question the actors are always asking themselves. And I think it's one of the interesting questions of the series too.
One of the other amazing things about Severance, outside of the actors, is the creepy Lumen building. Now, you never know what's going to appear around the corners there. Is it going to be a new office? Is it going to be an elevator? Is it going to be a goat? So will we see more parts of the company this season? And did the goats get a bigger trailer?
The goats they held out. That's one of the reasons it took so long to have tough. Season 2 come out.
They're tough.
The goat negotiations.
They know what they're doing, though.
Yeah. They held us up, though. We had a goat lockout for a while.
We had a goat strike.
Yeah, and then the lockout.
Yep.
Yeah, but the weirdness of the environment and the space is definitely an important thing. That strange feeling of just an office building. Anytime you're in a sort of an empty office building, it's always creepy and seems to you can imagine all sorts of things. And that's some of the most fun of the show is really figuring out ways to continue to make these environments feel strange and off-putting, and finding new places and new spaces, and pushing the limits of what actually can be around the next corner or behind a seemingly kind of nondescript door.
Now, speaking of goats, it appears that Gwendolyn Christie is joining the cast this season. And in the trailer, she appears to be waving a cowbell. Now, is that for the goats or Christopher Walken?
It's a really good question.
That's a good one. I think more cowbell. Is
more cowbell
is what the reference is.
That's
yeah.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate you acknowledging.
Yeah, I think it would be great to have Chris go more goat bell.
Exactly.
That was a bad Chris Walker.
No, we really need him to do that at some point.
It
It has to happen.
It is. It's a goat bell.
That's
it's a
right.
goat bell.
Based on your experience creating Severance, we're going into 2025. What's your advice for some optimal work-life balance for the fans?
Well, my work-life balance is all upside down because I don't have hobbies like as a person. I like to work and then I like being home, but I don't have stuff to do in between those two things. So I'm always kind of thinking or talking about work while I'm at home. My wife and I work together, so it's all sort of mixed up, but it's great. Everyone's happy. But as far as there being a balance, it's not really there. So I'm not one to give any advice on work-life balance, unfortunately.
I have a hobby that I can suggest.
Yeah, what is it?
Become a Knicks fan.
Oh.
It's a good time to jump on the bandwagon because we're peaking right now.
Knicks are doing very, very well right now.
Yeah, I'm from New York, so I'm going to agree.
It's a good year. It's
great.
a good year to jump on the bandwagon.
Okay, so maybe I had a Knicks hat in high school, but that was just because I was super into Spike Lee.
Well,
I didn't know anything about the Knicks.
Spike Lee's a fan. He's at the
I know,
games. John Turturro is a big
I gotta
Knicks
go.
fan.
I gotta do it.
All right.
All right, that's my hobby. Knicks.
Why did you do this? What is this all about?
Do you know something about Gemma?
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
When you first saw the script for season 1 of Severance, you said that it was a little bit confusing and a little bit off-putting. How did you feel when you saw the script for season 2, now that the show is so huge?
Well, I, again, had a million questions. I think it made sense what was happening for Cobell at the beginning of the season because of the end of last season. But I had a lot of questions of where I was going and what I was doing. But there were things as the season goes on that get revealed for my character that we had talked about at the beginning of last season. So I kind of knew some of them were coming, but I didn't know exactly how they were going to realize them. But I'm excited about people discovering that stuff.
As you mentioned, Harmony went through a lot at the end of last season. Is she about to turn against Lumen? Like, is she really going to be more of a problem for Lumen this season?
Well, I think it's very difficult for her because she's been so indoctrinated into Lumen for so long. And she's clawed her way up to this position of power and success in a way. And we as a whole society are like, you should become a doctor. You work your way up and you spend all these years and you, especially a nebulous organization like this, which is like part religion, part organization, corporation. It has such a strange set of values and morals, and it's so in her head. And she has played this game for so long with them, while also kind of having her own agenda at the same time. But it's her whole life picture. It's where she's imagined everything. She also is fiercely committed to Keir Egan, and his view of the world mixed with this new technology and science. And she thinks there's this fusion that's kind of in keeping with Keir's vision, where the Jaime Helena version of Lumen is not really in keeping with that.
Speaking of cults, you're right. Lumen feels very cultish. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is. Did you find yourself researching cults when you were researching this role? And what helped you define this character in terms of like other roles you've taken or inspiration you might have found in your research?
Yeah, very early on, when I first got the pilot, it happened at the same time that I was watching a lot of cult films and kind of looking at cult ideology and cult structure. But then also, when I read this, I thought also about the military and political parties, any kind of dogmatic institutions, any kind of business structure also. All of these things, the layers of all of these things, and religions, and sort of fables through religions, and, far out beliefs of like miracles and fantasies and songs and all these things. Some of that was kind of touched upon in the pilot, and I asked Dan Erickson about it, and so we kind of dug down into that, and I talked to Ben about it, and that gave me kind of a place to begin to understand her thought process.
Yeah, no, it comes through. She's such a complicated character. You have some of the best scenes with Mark, both his innie and his outie, actually. What impressed you the most, the way Adam Scott played these two characters? And what was your favorite scene with him?
That's really good. I feel like his innie, like he was playing it the first season, his innie was like a little child. And his outie had this like damage and pain from the world. And I think we're seeing everyone's innie kind of grow up a little bit and incorporate some things that are not as pleasant. And we see his conflict, his outie and his innie, their conflict. And there's a bit of a moral struggle that I think he has about who is he and what are his values and what does he believe in and what is right and what is wrong and all of these things that he's grappling with. So Cobell wants him to behave a certain way. She wants to observe what he's doing also. And she also wants to use him a bit as a pawn to get what she wants. There's a lot of layers of things in their relationship. And I think she also thinks she can manipulate him with certain things, with fear or loss or guilt or all of these things that people use.
Yeah, absolutely. She also sort of seems to go off the Lumen script a little bit in season 1. And I'm wondering if we're going to see that more in season 2. Like, I don't think Lumen told her to befriend Mark's real outie family, but it almost looked like she was making real connections. Is that something that she's going to explore more?
Oh, that's a really good question. I also agree that I think when she was Zellwig, I don't think she saw it coming, but she was kind of testing out, what does it feel like to make friends and be a neighbor, to like people and to be jolly with people and all of this kind of stuff that I don't think is really the way that she grew up. And I think she was trying that on for size and enjoying it a bit. And yet I feel like she's so indoctrinated. She has a rebellious nature, and I think she thinks she knows what's best. And I think she also has a desire to prove herself and maybe a little bit hubris and thinks she's smarter than other people at Lumen. But she also is really angry, and she feels rejected, and she feels underappreciated and usurped and betrayed.
Okay, so we're not in trouble?
I don't think so. Milchick said we're famous.
All of us equally, or one of us is like the star?
The infamous dance party that you all had in season 1 was an amazing team building experience. Are we going to get more of those awkward team building experiences or more parties in season 2?
I'm going to get team building experiences, but they're not going to be necessarily parties.
Yeah, there's,
Well, maybe
there's
they
definitely
will be.
some team building that happens in season 2.
And
Yeah.
some celebrations that are Lumen strange.
Yeah.
Speaking of Lumen Strange, Britt, let's talk about your character a little bit. You had a pretty big epiphany at the end of last season. Who do you feel in your mind is more trapped, Helly or Helena?
Yeah, they're both trapped in really different ways. Helena is trapped within the company that she's born into, and Helly is trapped by her own self. So, I mean, I have a lot of empathy for the ways and for the nuances of those experiences. And yeah, it was really, it was fun to spend season 1 in Heliar's shoes, asking what the hell is going on and looking at the strangeness of the Lumen world and like, why is everyone acting so weird? And to kind of learn how Lumen operates. And then in season 2, to step into the role of a leader within that company and to look around and see it from that perspective.
Especially as an Egan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
she has a weird father. I mean, let's face
Yeah.
it. I mean, well, first thing we saw those wax statues of everybody, and that's weird enough. But then we actually saw the guy. He's a very good actor. And I was like, oh my God, this is scary.
Actually, John, speaking of weird, you appear in claymation and as a watermelon sculpture in the trailer. What was everybody's reaction
I wasn't there, for the watermelon sculpture. I was gone, but yeah. So it's always weird to see. I guess you should ask them.
Yeah, there's that kind of uncanny valley aspect of looking at a replication of your friend.
But it's also always amazing to see what the team comes up with. Like it when you see a watermelon version of John, you're like, wow, hey, that's a watermelon version of John. It's always so impressive when we see the final result of all the hard work that the others have put in.
Yeah, weird to be part of a cult. You know what I mean? It's
Now, John, you did say that you weren't there, so I'm gonna ask: is Irving okay? And are we going to see him and Bert this season? Because I know
you'll see him and
Christopher
Bert.
Walken have some amazing scenes.
Yeah, you'll see him and Bert. Yes, you will. Yes, and Irving is going through changes. Yes, and he gets into some trouble and things like that. But you'll see the story will unfold.
Do you have a favorite Christopher Walken scene? This is for all of you.
I just love watching them together.
Yeah.
Truly. And anytime they're together, it's a lot of fun. Both on screen and
off. Yeah.
We enjoy playing tennis with each other or dancing with each other. Yeah, I love Chris. So.
Now, Zach, your character Dylan is the only one who we see on this show with an actual family, which was clearly a shock. How will this knowledge affect his innie in season 2?
Yeah, that's one of the big questions of season 2. In season 1, he has all these ideas of what his life outside might be, and he kind of fancies himself maybe a little bit of a playboy. Then he learns he has a kid, and that's big information, and it changes the way he thinks about himself, and it changes the way he interacts with the others in the office, and it changes what he wants for himself.
Now, let's go back to Safer Territory, season 1. When you think back when you were first developing your characters, did you think of your characters the first season, your Innies, as children? Did you think of that when you were developing them?
I got a whole backstory from Dan, so I was working on that and doing kind of research to that, and then trying to figure out how much of that would bleed through once I was severed. Yeah.
And I think there's definitely there's a childishness and a childlike quality because they just don't have the information. They don't have the life experience, so
they don't have their baggage with them.
We love seeing the goats on this show. I have to ask, how are they as scene partners?
I think they're wonderful. They are totally unpredictable.
I wouldn't know. I haven't been allowed to act opposite the goats yet.
Yeah, me either. I'm not. Yeah, I've seen I've been close to the goats.
I've seen the goats.
I will say
I have a dog, so
I think everyone has a strong desire when you're with a baby goat to take the baby goat home with you.
Yeah. Big mistake.
So my next question, Britt, is do you have a baby goat at home?
I can't disclose that information.